What's up, fellow Autism? As some of you may know, I love the Tony Hawk series, and just like a lot of kids back in the day, it got me into skateboarding and skateboarding-related media. The series defined a generation, and with the first game turning 25 later this year, I decided, hey, why not just make a video on the first game? But before I get into that, it's time for a personal history lesson. My first experience with the series was back in 2005. I got a Nintendo 64 that year, I think for Christmas. Thank you, Mama Enun, and you too, unnamed former stepdad. I got a bucket full of games that day, including, but not limited to, Smash Bros, Rayman 2, Turok Rage Wars, NBA Hang Time, Pokemon Snap, and Tony Hawk 1 and 2. As you can tell, they're my original copies because it says Ethan on the back, so that means they're mine. Anyways, I played the shit out of these two games, especially with my sister. We had some good times, but I'd usually play by myself most of the time since I'd only ever see her every other weekend. I still had fun though. And after that, the rest is history. Yeah, I know, that was a really short history lesson, but guess what? I got another one! This time, I'm just gonna talk about the development of the first game, all ripped from Wikipedia because I don't know how to do my own research. The year is 1998. After the release of Sega's Top Skater and EA's Street Skater, Activision saw the skateboarding genre as a growing market in the gaming industry and concluded that a skateboarding game would be hip and cool with a young audience, so they decided to start development on one. Activision gave the job to some random studio, but they were not impressed with the studio's attempt and didn't move past the concept stage. Later on, Activision gave the job to Neversoft, a struggling studio who at the time was only known for 3 games: Skeleton Warriors, the PS1 port of MDK, and Apocalypse starring Bruce Willis, and that game was basically Neversoft's big break before their big break, if you know what I mean. Activision was impressed with Apocalypse, so they gave the job of making their skateboarding game to Neversoft. Now, they've never made a sports game before, but they were confident in their ability to get the job done before Christmas '99. During development, the team would have lunch at the local bowling alley, playing and studying the shit out of Top Skater, and observed real skaters doing their thing in the X Games, which were going on around that time. Initially, the game was slated to be a simple Top Skater clone with it being a downhill racer, but the developers decided that Top Skater didn't have the sense of fun that they aimed for, so they turned it into a free roamer, although the racetrack concept was retained for 2 of the final game's levels. Using Apocalypse as its base, Neversoft threw up a prototype with Bruce Willis's character skating around and decided, yeah, we need a face for this game, a professional, and they wanted none other than Tony Hawk to be that face. So in September 1998, Activision arranged a meeting with the Hawkman, and he was impressed by the prototype and agreed to lend his name and involvement to the development. During development, Neversoft would make builds and upload them to an FTP server for Tony to try and give some feedback, and he'd burn them onto a CDR and play them on his modded PS1. He even went as far as to send copies of the game to some trusted individuals who also had modded PS1s, to get people hyped. Tony would also select the cast of other professional skaters, who each got to select what they wore in the game and their special tricks. In terms of animation, Neversoft had to largely depend on using skate videos as reference, but they also dived into trying out motion capture to try to add some more realism to the game, but due to time constraints, they scrapped that idea. Also during development, skateboarding history was made. June 27th, 1999. Hey, might I get a first birthday? X Games 5, Skateboard Vert Best Trick. After 11 long, grueling, painful attempts, Tony Hawk does the impossible.
Everybody picture it, here we go! Feel it!
That's right, Tony becomes the first person to land a 900 on a skateboard. This moment basically turns Tony into a literal god. He's like the MJ of skateboarding at this point. His popularity skyrockets, therefore increasing the hype around his game. And after over a year in development, Tony Hawk Pro Skater drops on the PlayStation on September 29th, 1999 to critical acclaim. So with all that out of the way, how does the first Thips hold up? Let's find out. The game starts off with the iconic Neversoft eyeball logo with a short rock music stinger to get you hyped. Before the eyeball debuted, we had this Illuminati-esque angel on a pyramid thing, as seen in Apocalypse and other pre-Tony Neversoft titles. It's an upgrade for sure, but please, someone put this logo on a t-shirt. This goes hard. Oh wait, I already did that. And no, I'm not selling these. After that, we get treated to a very well-made intro to the tune of the Dead Kennedy's Police Truck. It introduces the cast in a style that's not unlike a typical skate video, if not a bit overdone. But it gets you hyped, and that's all that matters. Once you get to the main menu, you're greeted by an iconic piece of music composed by Brian Bright. And fun fact, this song is full of samples. For example... We have a few game modes to pick from. The career mode is where you have to complete as many goals as you can within 2 minutes. Along the way, you'll unlock new levels and decks, and increase your stat points for more air, speed, balance, etc. Single session is basically just the career mode without goals. You have 2 minutes to get the highest score you can. Free skate gets rid of the timer and lets you skate around each level for as long as you want. You know, it's
practice mode.
We also have multiplayer. You and a buddy have 3 modes to pick from. Trick Attack is just like single session, but whoever gets the highest score wins. Horse is what any sane skater would call a game of skate. The leader does a combo, and the other person has to beat that score or else they'll get a letter. The first one to get all the letters is a... Replace that sound with any word, or I guess your favorite slur. Then there's graffiti. You trick off objects and get a high combo to tag that object, and if one gets a higher combo off that object, then they'll steal that object. Most tags wins. And that's all for the game modes. Now to the main game. You pick a skater and you're greeted by the deck customization menu. I don't see anyone talk about this. It's really cool that you can choose your favorite deck graphic and your wheel color. Most people will choose a deck and stick with it, and I do the same, but I usually pick wheels that somewhat match the deck. Yeah, it just looks cooler. Time to head to the first level, the warehouse. But before we talk about the levels though, let's go over the gameplay. You skate around and do tricks. Wow, amazing. But in the career mode, you do objectives. There's 5 objectives in each level, and they all consist of getting a high score, collecting the skate letters, doing something with 5 objects, fighting the hidden tape, and getting an even higher score. And you gotta complete as many goals as you can within 2 minutes. The more goals you complete, the higher your stats will be and the more decks you'll unlock. Every few levels, there's a competition in which you try to impress the judges by getting as high of a score as you can within 3 1-minute rounds, or 2 if you know what you're doing. Don't bail too much or the judge's score will be lower. After the run, the judges will give you their score and the average is totaled up. The best 2 heats are counted towards your final score. Highest score wins. And well, that's it. There's nothing else to it. It's that simple. So, levels. You got 9 well-made levels, each with their own quirks. The warehouse is a nice starter tutorial-ish level. It's the level that everyone seems to meme on. The skate letters are spread out, but it takes a lot of effort on your part to explore and create your own route for the level. When you start the level, you can enter through the left side or the right side. The left side leading to the big rail, and the right side leading to the crates, the half pipe, and the secret tape. These options lead you to coming up with how you're going to tackle each goal. Do you want to go for the high score of the skate letters, or do you get the crates and the hidden tape? Or why not do all of them if you're a Tony Hawk gamer god like me? The school looks nothing like a school, at least the schools I went to. They didn't have these awnings or random benches or a creek or 2 random pools just sitting next to each other. I guess it's a Florida thing. This level is set in Miami after all. Even with all that, it flows well, and that's all that matters. I dig the alleyway behind the gym that leads to the top of the building. That's where you can hop up to the nearby awning and get the secret tape. Or you can hop into the gym, you know, the complicated way. Oh, and don't forget the Freedom Wall. The mall is one of the weaker levels, unfortunately. It's a downhill level, but it's somewhat tightly compacted. I dig the random stores, that's how you know it's a real mall, but the malls I went to never had pools with rails you can grind over. And when you get to the end of the level, your run ends, just like that. Even if it's one of the weaker levels of the game, I will say the idea of skating through an abandoned mall is a cool concept. Yeah, that's what we should do with dead malls. Turn them into skate parks. Like, who's gonna get hurt by that? Nobody. Speaking of skate parks, the skate park is a skate park, and it's the first competition level. It's got a good selection of vert and transition skating. It has this cool tiki graffiti near the half pipe, and this section is probably one of the best ways to score points. Or you can launch yourself and grind onto the rafters for a sick combo. I love the decor of the place. There's a ton of wood grain-based obstacles sprinkled in with these metal beams and fluorescent lights. With the addition of skate company logos, it makes it feel like a real sponsored event. Fun fact, this is one of the earliest levels to make it from the early stages of development, all the way to the final game without too much being done with it. Downtown is one of my favorites. It's the first level in the series to take place at night, and the first level with the vehicles, crazy taxis if you will. This level was also one of the earliest ones to make it through development, with one of the prototypes having a Bruce Willis statue in place of the fountain as a homage to Apocalypse. The level is filled with graffiti and there's a ton of space and areas to trick off of, but it might feel a bit empty because of all that space. There's also 2 rooftop areas which you can transfer from rooftop to rooftop through this pool. This is how you would also get the secret tape. It's tricky, but with some determination, you'll eventually make that death-defying gap. The skate letters are spaced out and they'll take you all around the map, although most of the time you won't get them in order. There's also no skateboarding signs to destroy, you know, fuck the authority and all that. Style-wise, it looks really good for a PS1 game. The skybox in the background really encapsulates the feeling that you're in a big city. The graffiti that's spread throughout the level gives it some sort of life. Instead of bland textures everywhere, you get some nice art, if you consider graffiti art, and I hope you do, by the way. Also, the taxi drivers like to talk shit about you whenever they run over you. Overall, it's a big open level with some cool spots to skate. It's pretty cozy all things considered, skating at midnight, breaking down street signs, jumping between 2 rooftops, doing car plants on taxis, like what more could you ask for? Downhill Jam is another weak level because of its downhill nature. It's one of the most hated Tony Hawk levels of all time, and I completely understand why. The problem isn't that the level isn't well designed, it's a fine level, but it's because whenever you bail or miss a goal, you have to go uphill, which can take forever, and the way physics play in this game, your skater wants to go downhill all the time. The 4th valve especially, I can usually get it in my first try, but when you miss, it's a pain in the ass to try to go back and hit it. The hidden tape can also be a real pain, especially if you miss. You have to go all the way back to the half pipe, grind the rail, get over this gap, ride on the rock, pass the Mountain Dew sign, get over another gap, and hope to God you have enough speed to fast plant or ollie your way to the hidden tape. I know it's the one thing that everyone complains about, but that just shows you how deep the trauma of getting that tape is. But after subsequent playthroughs of this game, it gets a little bit easier. Probably the first 2 goals you'll get are the score goals. By this point of the game, you should already have the controls down. The skate letters aren't that bad, it's only when you have to get to the E, which every time I play this game, the rail to get up to where the E is gets farther and farther away from it, which just pisses me off. The valves aren't terrible, they're really hard to miss except for the 4th one. Depending on your speed, you can completely jump over it, and knowing the Tony Hawk game's affinity for small hitboxes, that means you'll be going back uphill to open it like I stated before. It's not a terrible level, it doesn't look bad at all, but the way it plays leaves a lot to be desired. It plays well in Thug 2 though. Burnside is based off a real-life skate park in Portland, Oregon, and just like the skate park, it's another fitting competition level. And that's it. There's not much to say except the Neversoft Eyeball Bowl, the Neversoft building, the 2D car textures, the porta potty, and that you can play this level in grind session. It has a cool aesthetic to it, being that it's under a freeway and there's tons of ways to build up your score and speed if you're planning on staying on the opening ramp. Some may say it's one of the weaker levels, and I don't agree with that. It's a small one, but a good one. Streets is probably my favorite level in the game. I dig the tributes to the EMB and Hubba Hideout, and I really like the tiny additions like the smallest Chinatown in the world, the trolley, and the hippie van. Oh yeah, there's an active crime scene too, by the way. I love this level, but I do feel like this level is just too big. When you're doing goals, you're on the clock. The time it takes you to do one goal, you've already wasted so much time, and if you bail, just forget about it. You might as well retry the level to get another run. I like how we start from the top of the map and we have to go downhill. Also, don't forget this easy to miss cop car. You have to grind on 5 of them, by the way. Once again, fuck them pigs. I want to skate. After grinding this first cop car, you then come to a dilemma. You can either go left or right. Any sensible seasoned player can tell you don't get the S on the left. It's a complete waste of time. But THPS 1 is like that. You gain a bit of level experience, so even when you make mistakes, you can always learn from them and realize that going left in the start of this level is completely pointless. So go right and grab the K first, then grind the cop car outside the donut shop. Pass by the old Neversoft logo, grind 2 more cop cars in front of an active crime scene, and then visit Chinatown for the A. Now the cool thing about Chinatown is that it may be small, but it has 3 exits. You can go left onto the back alleyways, go straight onto the trolley rails, or go right by breaking this glass and ollieing this huge gap. After that, you head to whatever this building is supposed to be to get the T. Take the exit and head to this other mysterious building to enter the pool where the E is. Now, you gotta skate like hell to grind the last cop car, then head to the Hubba hideout to get the S. And by the time you get the S, you'll have mere seconds to finish your run. Told you this level was big. My favorite and least favorite part of this level is the hidden tape jump. It's that suspense of ollieing onto the fountain, jumping from building to building, just to get to the top of another building to launch yourself off this hotel sign into a gazebo to get this hidden tape. And let me tell you, it stings your soul if you miss the tape but break the glass. You can also do the speedrun route of wall riding this wall and wallying up to the platform. I don't know, it saves a few seconds. As I said, it's one of my favorite levels, but it does feel a bit too big, but that's perfectly fine. If you've gotten all the tapes by the time you finish this level, you'll unlock a secret skater. Officer Dick is here. Now you can fulfill a conservative's dream of skating as a pig. Or if you dream of skating as a barely legal chick, you can enter a cheat code and you'll unlock Private Carrera, replacing Dick. Now where was I? Oh yeah, the levels. The final level, Roswell. You can't end a late 90s video game without some aliens or a type of conspiracy theory. Throughout the game, every time you end a run, you'll get a message that you're close to a secret event, making you wonder what the final level is going to be. Even when the level was locked, you're wondering where it could take place because all it says is unknown, unknown. It's not like the other level previews. There's no ramps or rails or any semblance of a level, just an eerie, stick-like outline. And once you unlock it, it's all green and with question marks scattered around with that figure just staring at you. Then it hits you. Roswell, New Mexico, home to the Roswell incident, a 1947 UFO crash, the first one that most people know about. In reality, it was an Air Force balloon that crashed, but that's what the government wants you to think. On a side note, if you know your Neversoft lore, lead programmer Mick West is deep into conspiracy theories, especially when it comes to UFOs. He's not a nutcase though, he debunks them all the time on his Twitter. With all that said, let's get into the level. Concrete Conspiracy 99. The moment the level starts, you hear the helicopters soaring over you, the coyote howling in the distance, and searchlights looking for any trespassers trying to interrupt this competition. Welcome the sounds of your skateboard hitting the metal half pipes. God, it's so satisfying. It gives me tingles. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. The level is good and it looks cool, but you'll mainly be repeating the ET grind or skating back and forth on these half pipes and doing tricks over this gap to get extra points. Other than that, you know, there's not much else to say. There's a pool room with a UFO, military jeep, and tank that stalks you, and there's also dinosaur bones buried at the bottom of a pool. I almost forgot about this little fella here. Sorry, broski, can't do anything. Oh yeah, there's a nuke here, by the way. Don't get me wrong, this competition is tough, a lot harder than the last two. If you bail even a couple of times, it can knock you down from first to third or even last place. So you really gotta bring your A game and be the professional legend Tony Hawk player that you are. After medaling in the competition, you get a bails video. Ouch, that's gotta hurt. If you place first in the competition, you're then treated to a little montage of your skater with real-life skate footage. Once that's done, the game tells you to get your lazy ass off the couch and go skate for real. But you aren't gonna do that. You're watching this video. You can't even skate. Okay, I can't either. Roll credits. Alright, now that we got the levels down, let's talk about the gameplay. The moment you first play the game, you find that the controls are easy to understand, and compared to other skateboarding games released at the time, these controls are pretty much pick up and play. You hold X down to crouch and gain speed, and you release it to jump, or ollie for the noobs out there. While in the air, you can press a direction on the D-pad, and you better be playing with the D-pad by the way, and press either square to do a flip trick, or circle to do a grab trick. While ollieing next to a rail or ledge, you can press any direction on the D-pad and press triangle to do a grind. You can spin by holding either left or right on the D-pad, or hold L1 or R1 to spin a little faster. Please use L1 and R1. You can do multiple tricks in a combo to increase your score and your special meter. Fill it up and it starts having a seizure, and now you're special. So that means you can do cool tricks like this, and this, and this, and this. And that's pretty much it. There's really nothing else to it. It takes practice, but once you master it, a lot of things become second nature. So how does this hold up in current year? A lot of people say the first Thips didn't age well because of one thing. There are no manuals. Manuals were planned, but were scrapped due to time constraints. I know for a lot of people who aren't as addicted to this series as I am may find it harder to go back to Thips 1 because of no manuals. And to that I say, skill issue. Okay, sure, I agree. This game has aged, and not having manuals contributes to that. But here's the thing. I want you to look at this footage. It looks like shit because it's a web video from the early 2000s re-uploaded to YouTube, but look at how Irie Rhythm does it, and look at it good. What I'm trying to say is that you gotta be creative with how you approach combos. Yes, doing combos without manualing and reverting is hard, but practice makes perfect. And check this video out, this is awesome. This guy named BS Grind deadass got a 1,000,000-point combo, and he's like the only person I know who has ever accomplished this. Yes, it's possible, and yes, it's really difficult, and yes, I've been trying to replicate this combo for months with no avail. Until recently. Yeah, we did it! God, that felt so satisfying. To make a long story short, get creative. You do not need manuals to do a good combo. But yeah, as I said before, because of a lack of manuals, yeah, this game hasn't aged well. But this was a new thing. I'm not expecting miracles with the first game in a long-running franchise. Pair some very good controls with well-made levels and a kick-ass soundtrack featuring the likes of the Dead Kennedys, Goldfinger, the Suicidal Tendencies, and more, and you've got the birth of a gaming legend. I give it a 3 out of 5. It's still a great game, but again, manuals. The game was initially released for the PS1, but ports were bound to follow. The first port to come out was the Nintendo 64 version, developed by Edge of Reality. The port was initially slated for a December 1999 release, but it ended up getting pushed back to March 15th, 2000. The Nintendo 64 port is basically the same as the PS1 version, but with minor, or to some, major differences. Graphics are a bit better, the skater shadow looks better, it runs better, but there's some differences like the camera being locked to the far position, no arm moving animation while crouching, some tricks play out slower, blood was removed while bailing, partially contributing to the port's E rating instead of a T rating, and because of the N64 cartridge's limited space, there are no FMVs, and the soundtrack is heavily chopped, screwed, and bit crushed to save space. And to a lot of people, this is why the N64 ports of the series are generally considered to be the worst thing since the Super Mario Brothers movie. But to that I say, you're joking, right? Hear me out, this port isn't all that bad. Sure, I may be biased because this was the first version of Thips I played, but guys, it's still Thips. I don't give a shit if the soundtrack is butchered. The only thing I care about is if the game plays like a Tony Hawk game, and it does. It plays fine and it controls fine. Sure, you might have to get used to the tricks being done with the C buttons, but like, get good. We also have a version for the Game Boy Color released in the same month, developed by Natsume. It's a completely different game, as expected. Because of this, it's incredibly limited. There's a half-pipe mode in where you go back and forth doing tricks in 3 different locations, and there's a racing mode in where you race against AI opponents and pull off JPEGs of some random person doing a trick, but not actually a trick. Overall, it kinda sucks. A couple months after the N64 and GBC versions released, the game dropped on Sega's swan song, the Dreamcast, on May 24th, 2000. This port was made by Treyarch, the Call of Duty guys, and published by Crave Entertainment instead of Activision for some reason. It's the same game, same levels, same soundtrack, same everything, but this time the game looks pretty. Running at a mouth-watering 480p, the game has seen some much-needed enhancements in the graphics department. There's better textures, more detailed character models, unique celebration animations for almost every skater, higher quality sound effects and music, which, fun fact, doesn't loop unlike the other versions do. What more could you ask for? Playing with a Dreamcast controller is weird at first. Yeah, this game was made for the PlayStation controller, but once you get used to it, you find out that Hands down, this is the best version of the game. But do you know what the best portable version of Pro Skater 1 is? It sure as hell ain't the Game Boy Color version, that's for sure. No, I'm talking about the N-Gage version. Yeah, remember the N-Gage, Nokia's failed gaming phone? The phone where you had to hold it sideways to do calls. Yeah, that one. By the way, this port was more well known for its commercial than the port itself. This is where I tried my best moves on Rebecca. What do they mean by this? This port was developed by IdeaWorks 3D, who made some really impressive N-Gage ports like Tomb Raider and Pandemonium, all in full 3D. And Tony Hawk is no different. The N-Gage version is a straight up port of the PS1 version with pretty much everything but the FMVs and some songs intact. The major difference is that this game is vertical, and also everything looks a little gray, but it still looks really good for a mobile phone game from 2003. Yeah, 2003. I don't know why they decided to port Tony Hawk 1. Tony Hawk 4 was already out by then, so why couldn't they make a port of the PS1 version of that game? Whatever. Now, I'm playing this with a keyboard, so it's not the most ideal way to play it, but from looking at gameplay from a real N-Gage, I can see that controlling it might feel a little cramped given the small buttons, but it still plays fine. There's nothing too noteworthy about this port other than, one of the songs is completely uncensored for some reason. And two, this port has Tony 2 levels. The Hangar, Venice, and New York were ported for some reason.
They also added Philadelphia.
This is probably the worst way to play these levels. You still can't manual, by the way, but this is a really cool factoid. Other than that, it's another solid port. That's all the ports I know of, but I do have one more thing to add about THPS 1. In PAL regions, this game was released as Tony Hawk's Skateboarding. Apparently, Neversoft thought that Europeans would think that skater in Pro Skater meant ice skating. I don't know, I guess they thought Europeans were dumb or something. Everything is pretty much the same, but it runs at 50 Hz, so it plays slower. The only notable change is the soundtrack. 3 songs were replaced by songs from artists known in Europe, namely AIM featuring YZ, Aqua Sky, and Grand Unified. Other than that, it's pretty much the same game. And that was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. The game was received very well and it sold like hotcakes, and soon after the game was finished, development on a sequel began. But that's where I'm gonna end it off here. This video was supposed to be one big video of me reviewing the first 3 games, but for my sanity, it's probably best for me to do just separate videos. I even made a cool thumbnail for this thing and I won't be able to use it. Please stay tuned for my Tony Hawk 2 review in the future. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I didn't. If you did, give this video a like, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. If you're looking for more ENunnGaming, check out my review of the Deadliest Warrior games. It's bloody, but it's kind of meh. Spoiler alert, it's meh. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.